I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews with Jordan Jefferson, co-founder and CEO of DogeOS, here to talk about Dogecoin, the app layer for Dogecoin, the Doge ecosystem, and much more. Jordan, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Ashton, thanks for having me, man. Excited.
Yeah, excited to dive in with an OG Bitcoiner and Dogecoiner. Dogecoin blockchain has been around for so long, I think longer than Ethereum. It's amazing that it's still going, and now it's finally expanding the ecosystem with an app layer, which I'm excited to talk about today, and mintables, NFTs on Doge, all this other stuff. So I'd love to kick off our conversation with a little bit on your history and interest in Dogecoin and how that led to co-founding DogeOS.
For sure. So, as you mentioned, I was kind of early into Bitcoin, an OG, if you will, and definitely a true believer early on of peer-to-peer electronic cash. And I remember when Dogecoin launched, I actually didn't take it seriously. I didn't get the joke. I thought it was like, okay, this is funny, but it's never going to have any value. I didn't understand the value of memes, of culture, of community. And so I was kind of late to the Dogecoin party. I wasn't a Bitcoin maxi per se, but I already used Litecoin at the time. I was like, oh, this is kind of similar. I don't really need this. And so, I faded Dogecoin early. I had a roommate at the time who was mining it nonstop, and he kept telling me, man, it's just for fun. Like, just do it for fun. You never know. And I was like, whatever, man. And so it wasn't until much later when we started My Doge, the Dogecoin wallet, which was our first product, when I like fully dove into the Doge community. And I got to credit my partners for kind of Doge pilling me when we were getting together and figuring out what to build. So I came late to the party, but when I had that moment where I finally got it. I wouldn't say like I'm a maxi of anything, but I'm as much of a Doge maxi as you could be once I kind of got a taste for the community.
Yeah, no, it's and now it's completely taken off. Of course, Elon Musk has grabbed a hold of it as well in some aspects, and now apparently it's helping flush the government out. Not related, but it's pretty cool to see that Doge is really expanding into the mainstream. That's really interesting about the Dogecoin wallet. Maybe you could touch a little bit on that, and then how that transitioned yourself into the Doge like operating system.
For sure. So we basically, we got together and we realized, look, the Doge community is huge, as everyone knows, but it was totally underserved and still is underserved.
Mm-hmm.
There's a massive community of millions, if not, 10 million plus holders who love this meme, they love this coin, and no one was really building anything just for them. So when we started the wallet, we really started with the idea, okay, let's just build something for the Doge community. Then we thought, okay, what should we build? We looked at the landscape. There wasn't, a Doge specific wallet. There was kind of an old one that had kind of been abandoned. And we thought, you know what, let's just make the best wallet experience for Doge users and go from there. So Alex, my CTO, and I, just the two of us, dropped everything we were doing, spent a few months coding, and launched the first version of the wallet on the App Store. And that was the moment that I was, fully Doge pilled because the response from the community was unlike anything I'd ever seen. I've been, a software engineer and founder forever, and small startups, like the engineers are always doing, the customer support and like all that kind of stuff. And interacting with the community that way and just feeling the support that they gave us, like there might be a bug where they think that their money is lost or it's stuck or something like that. We never lost anyone's money, but in the early beta days, there's things like that. And instead of what you would expect a user to do, just get super angry and, call you scammers and this and that, they were so supportive and just like, hey, let me know how I can help. Should I get a different phone and try it there? Like, no worries if the money's gone. I understand. We appreciate what you're doing for the community. And so that's when I was like, whoa, this is very different than anything I've ever done. And this is really special. So yeah, we launched the wallet. It, quickly became the number one Dogecoin app on the App Store, which it still is today. And, that was how we just got started in the Doge world, but definitely only the beginning. I can tell you quickly, the transition from that to DogeOS, this app layer, it's actually been an idea for a long time because, again, starting with the thesis that there's this huge community that's underserved, we always wanted to enable, developer capabilities on Dogecoin and economy on Dogecoin, and just more use cases for Doge in general. So the idea behind DogeOS is really create an on-chain economy that uses Dogecoin, create an ecosystem of Doge native apps and experiences, and just give the Doge community more things to do with their Dogecoin.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into those possibilities. I would love if you could touch on the Dogecoin blockchain a little bit. I feel like everyone has now heard of Doge, but most don't know the intricacies on why it's actually a good blockchain for making apps. From what I understand, I don't know the specific details, but it's fast and cheap and actually better than a lot of other blockchains.
Absolutely. And I would go as far as to say that most people don't even know that Dogecoin is a blockchain.
Hmm.
Many people, they know it's a meme coin, so they just assume, okay, it's like, I guess it's an ERC-20 because it's like a pretty old meme
Yeah.
coin. I talk to people across the industry. I mean,
Hmm.
CEOs of billion-dollar companies,
Hmm.
developers, fans, builders, whatever, and like half the people I meet don't actually realize Dogecoin is a blockchain. So I think, first and foremost, it is the second largest proof of work blockchain in the
Hmm.
world. It's merged mined with Litecoin, so together they form the largest proof of work network.
Hmm.
And I think that has a ton of value that the world hasn't realized yet. If you think about, meme coin versus meme chain, or,
Hmm.
meme coin versus second most powerful proof of work blockchain in the world, I think as
Hmm.
people start to realize that, yeah, the sky's the limit, kind of. And why is Dogecoin good as a blockchain on its own? Yes, it is fast and cheap. I mean, that is the fundamental premise. You have Bitcoin, which is, more expensive and slow to transact, and you had Dogecoin, which was faster and cheaper. Um, I think a lot of the fun of Dogecoin in the early days too was that you could have, 1 billion Dogecoin and it
Hmm.
felt really cool, and you could never have a billion Bitcoin.
Hmm.
Um, Harder to achieve that now with the, the astronomical price increase, but
Hmm.
um, that's basically it. I mean, the same security assumptions as, a proof of work network, slightly faster and cheaper, and objectively more fun.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's actually really nice, and I'm glad that there's more of that education coming from you guys as well. That hey, this isn't just a meme. This is a blockchain that's actually one of the strongest proof of work blockchains behind Bitcoin that there is. And then people are like, oh. And so the next question to that is why have we not been able to make apps earlier on? It just seems like there's over a 10-year history of Dogecoin, and now an app layer is coming out with different applications on top of it.
So I'll give you one bold take, and I think that if so, a little history. Dogecoin is, not only decentralized as a blockchain, but it's like completely decentralized from a governance, control, etc. perspective, in that there's no one in charge. There's absolutely nobody in charge. Jackson Palmer and Billy Marcus built the thing, left, and basically the community took it over. It's like the original CTO of a meme coin. And so, I mean, the original meme coin and original CTO, which I think is kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool. And so, because there was no team, there's no like foundation with huge treasury, all that kind of stuff. Like if a company or team had launched it, um, there are not a ton of resources. They're just volunteers contributing. And so I give this background to say, I think that if Dogecoin, this is my hot take, if Dogecoin had a huge developer team back then and Dogecoin had natively integrated smart contracts, I don't think we would even see Solana. Like, I don't think Solana would be what it is today because Dogecoin had, the meme coin narrative, it had the fast and cheap narrative, and had it, had all the development capabilities of something like Solana, I think, it would kind of be the Solana of today. So I think that basically, it's simply like the circumstance that has led to a lack of kind of native development on Dogecoin. It is the best thing about Dogecoin, though. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it is so decentralized, both in tech and governance and everything else. That's why we value it so much. But I would also want to point out, I mean, it's not like there's been literally no development. It's not like there hasn't been innovation in the Dogecoin ecosystem. I think the biggest there's been side chains in the past that use Doge for gas. I don't see that as necessarily being like fully Doge native ecosystem, but they've certainly met a need and have had some level of success. So people, they've validated the fact that people want to do more with their Doge. I think that, in addition to that, the biggest kind of like innovation moment and influx of developers in the Dogecoin ecosystem was around inscriptions in the
Mm-hmm.
last year or two. And so, inscriptions on Doge, Doginals, DRC20s, Dunes, these are all, the Doge version of Ordinals, BRC20s, runes on Bitcoin. That actually brought a ton of developers into the space and a ton of innovation. And to be honest, because there's quite limited development capabilities on the L1. I think it actually kind of like pushes people to innovate even more. So there's been some really cool stuff that's come out of that. So I think what we're doing is kind of just a natural evolution of, okay, let's make, a truly Doge sovereign, Doge native execution layer. Let's do it, with world-class tech and world-class partners so that we kind of have, unlocked all those barriers for developers who, really just want to innovate. And I think the coolest thing about Dogecoin is that it really embraces, wacky, different, silly, not serious stuff. So I kind of
Hmm.
think it's the perfect grounds for innovation, to bring like really fun, creative, cool, different, wacky stuff to the Web3 space.
Definitely, Jordan. That's really cool. And you compared to a few different application layers that are, the Bitcoin ecosystem is expanding with ordinals and the DRC20 tokens, which I think a lot of people still don't even understand the Bitcoin ecosystem. Maybe the Ethereum ecosystem is a little bit more well spoken into the mainstream of like ERC20 tokens and NFTs, which now that is possible on Dogecoin. But there's also DeFi applications on Ethereum, DEXs, other apps as well. So with DogeOS, what kind of applications like those is that kind of application available to be built now through DogeOS?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a way, anything you could build on Ethereum, Solana, or another chain could be built on DogeOS. I mean, it's in its first iteration, it's full EVM equivalent execution layer. So essentially, all the capabilities from that. Um, in terms of what will people build, and what are people building, that's a good question as well. I don't think personally that, in a general sense, that the world needs another blockchain. And I definitely don't think that the world needs another blockchain where it's just kind of a copy and paste of all the other apps on every
Mm-hmm.
other blockchain, right? Um, we really have to think about and kind of like guide developers because developers are super excited. Everyone's like, okay, this is a huge opportunity to, start building out the Doge ecosystem. We have to guide them to think, what can we do differently? What's going to appeal to the Doge community that we're trying to serve here? Let's, kind of get out of the box of just, okay, here's what every other chain has. Let's add this. Let's do this. Let's bring this project over. Because the capabilities are endless now. So I think, going from kind of like inscriptions with limited developer capabilities to kind of unlimited developer capabilities now, it's almost like, with such a, a wide opportunity, maybe you're not pressured to innovate as much. So what we try to do is really, tell people to innovate because again, no one really needs a bunch of copy and paste apps, but they're Dogecoin. What we really need is to think, what can we do differently? How can we build a unique economy, a unique ecosystem, something that, serves the Doge community and actually does something different?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, you mentioned earlier on, it's cool that Dogecoin owners can have like a billion Dogecoin, and there's probably lots of people that have millions of Doge. But I feel like people don't understand, well, what can I actually do with the Doge? It's sitting on the exchange, or maybe it's sitting in the My Doge wallet. I feel like Doge OS is something that could enable more utility, functionality. Hey, maybe I could stake it, or maybe I can use it in different applications. How can Doge OS actually create the use of Dogecoins to move the money around more?
Great question. And that is really the goal here. How to put Dogecoin to work, how to enable productive use cases for Dogecoin. Um, I think to your point, like almost 90% or around 90% of Dogecoin sits on centralized exchanges.
Mm.
And, we, the Dogecoin community, we see Dogecoin as money. And I would say, I obviously don't speak for the whole community, but I think collectively everyone would agree Dogecoin is money. That's the idea. Bitcoin has, shifted to this digital gold narrative since, I was there in the early days. And Dogecoin is kind of like carrying the torch of the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so my take, my question to the community is, okay, we want the world to accept Dogecoin as money. We want it to be the currency of Earth. That's kind of like the end goal. If we can't get it being used as money within the crypto economy, then how are we going to get, some guy on the street who's never even used crypto to use it as money? And I
Mm-hmm.
don't see it being used as money when it's just an asset traded on a centralized exchange. But it's not, we don't intend it to just be an asset. It's not meant to only be an investment. It's meant to be money. And so, bringing it on chain is the first step. And then when it's on chain, giving people something to do with it. Now, the Doge community is out there in the streets onboarding businesses to accept Dogecoin for payments. They're using it peer to peer. They're tipping on X.
Mm.
Like that is happening. It's being used as money by the community. But I think we need a real on-chain economy around Dogecoin for it to be kind of used as money in crypto. So when you talk about, what can people do, DeFi, staking, etc., I think that stuff's really, really important. I think when you bring the Doge on chain, you put it into productive use cases, you create an economy, you create flywheels. And even the simplest instance of this, giving people an opportunity to earn yield on their Doge savings, I think is transformational. It's
Hmm.
actually absolutely huge, especially when you consider that Dogecoin has inflation, unlike Bitcoin.
Mm.
Um, at least unlike Bitcoin eventually. Dogecoin has a small inflation, a very reasonable amount, much better than any fiat currency. But imagine you can actually, earn yield on your Dogecoin that outpaces that little bit of Doge inflation. I think
Mm.
that's, an
Hmm.
incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I would love to see that. And so DogeOS, it has that ecosystem for developers to come and build. But do I have it right that the DogeOS team actually isn't building apps themselves? You guys are onboarding developers from other ecosystems or Dogecoin fanatics to be able to build whatever kind of creative apps that they want.
So yes, we are onboarding developers and basically providing the tools, the infrastructure support to build amazing things. Now, we also have a lot of cool things that we want to build. So we're also kind of building this for ourselves because we've always dreamed up these cool ideas, even since probably before we built the wallet, that we're now going to be able to build, when DogeOS is live. But in the beginning, I think it's really important that it's not like an ecosystem where like we've just kind of built everything and like we're some big company that owns it all and like it appears like a natural ecosystem. I think that just kind of, defeats the purpose, especially given, what we all love about Dogecoin is that it's decentralized, no one's in charge, etc. I mean, that's also the vision for DogeOS. I mean, there's a roadmap to where, maybe I have no power, I'm not involved, no one else is involved. It's all in the hands of the people. It's all decentralized and so on.
That's very cool. And you mentioned, when Doge OS is live. Can you give a little bit more information on where it's at right now and sort of the tentative roadmap in going live?
Absolutely. So we have a developer test net right now. We're going to be, rolling that out into a proper public test net very soon. And, I don't want to throw a hard date out there, but let's just say kind of like end of summer, beginning of fall. We're looking at the full rollout, mainnet launch, and everything else.
It's very cool. And if there are developers right now, whether they're in crypto or just Web 2 developers, they could get involved right away. And then what about Dogecoin holders as well?
Absolutely. So developers can get involved right away, reach out to us. We've got a builders chat. We've got great people on the team kind of supporting those efforts. I think any day now we'll have like a big developer resources website that launches. It's going to make it even easier, maybe by the time this goes live. Uh, in terms of Dogecoin holders, we're other than kind of supporting following along on X, all that kind of thing, we are very close to sort of rolling out a campaign where we bring in the users who aren't devs to start having fun on the test net, helping the developers on the test net. We're gonna have some competition, some games, get everybody excited.
Sounds great, Jordan. I'd love to get your long-term vision on Dogecoin. I feel like um, saying, it's the money of the world. It sounds great, but how do we get there? And what other kind of visions do you have for Dogecoin, maybe in the next 5 years?
Great question. So I think the most powerful thing Dogecoin has going for it is its longevity and the size of community. I mean, the community is far bigger, the number of holders far bigger than any other meme coin and many other coins in general. And it's basically the Bitcoin of memes. It's the OG and it's been around so long. So it's it's hard to imagine, a newer, smaller thing having the potential to get to that like global scale in like a similar amount of time. It takes years to kind of build this foundation, build this community, and the longer it goes, the more people take it seriously, right? I think even 1 year ago, the number of people who took Dogecoin seriously was a lot smaller than it is today. We've
Mm-hmm.
got to the point where institutions are buying Dogecoin, and those same institutions wouldn't even buy Bitcoin like 1 or 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's hard to imagine kind of like a tidal wave behind a meme like Dogecoin has. Now, where do I see it going? What does that mean? How do we take advantage of that? Um, it's a challenge. I think the you have a huge community here, but because it's like so old, I think the big question is how do you like really invigorate everyone and activate everyone again, like those moments in time in the past where Dogecoin was the thing everyone was getting excited and talking about. We have this base, all these supporters. If we provide the vehicle to activate them, if we get them excited, if we show them the incentive that, hey, this mission is still going and we are like on the verge of building a new financial system around Dogecoin, building something by the people for the people, then I think anything is possible. So, what we're doing is all a step towards that. We thought, hey, you need a really consumer friendly wallet that your average person can just, get some Doge and start spending it. Now we're like, okay, we need more use cases. We need especially decentralized use cases to sort of, lay the foundations of a Doge economy and go from there. And I think, if we continue down this path, if we, bring in the best creative people, developers, memers, artists, whatever, if we activate all this talent in the community, then, I think it can become the currency of Earth, or at the very least, much more popular and transformational than it is today. So I think that's the dream. And then to specifically answer your question, 5 years, where do I see Dogecoin? I mean, I generally avoid just speculating on the price because it's kind of about more than the price. I mean, it's about the dream, the vision, et cetera, and the price will follow.
Mhm.
But in 5 years, I expect, Dogecoin payments commonly accepted at retailers across America and around the world. And I think actually much sooner than 5 years. There's a lot happening on that front. Um, and I think that, more of the crypto community realizes that Dogecoin is a blockchain in 5 years
Mhm.
and perhaps values it as such. And I think undoubtedly with what we're doing, there's a real ecosystem on Doge. There's a real on-chain economy on Doge, and Doge is, a little less on exchanges and more,
Mhm.
moving around the ecosystem, actually being spent, actually being used as money.
It's an exciting future, Jordan. I'm looking forward to seeing how Dogecoin expands, DogeOS going live, and people actually being able to use their Doge, whether we can stake it and beat out the inflation or use it for Doginals, all these other fun applications. And I'm looking forward to seeing what creative applications, as you said, can come out through the Doge OS. So I'll be following along. I'll leave the social links, the Doge OS X in the show notes and the platform links. And wishing you and the team all the best. Would love to follow up again in the near future. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ashton. This was a lot of fun. And yeah, welcome to the Doge army.